Welcome to Storm Tracker, your eye on the storm of your Carolina Hurricanes, and your home for the best insight and analysis to keep you totally informed on what's happening with the Canes. Whether it's the latest news on the ice or off the ice, we've got you covered. Now let's begin. Here's your host, Tom Ray.
Well, the Carolina Hurricanes are playing outstanding hockey of late, winning 5 of their last 7 games and losing just 1 game in regulation. The Canes have looked dominant at times and are back to playing Hurricanes hockey again. Superior goaltending, a mostly healthy defensive core, and a pair of hat tricks in back-to-back games are all part of the story. The confidence of this Canes group has visibly improved as their successes have grown. What have been the keys to that success? And what, if any, areas can the Canes still improve at the deadline? Join me as always, our hockey savants, Aaron and Katie. Ladies, this is going to be fun.
Absolutely.
No doubt.
Okay, so, since the last time the Canes had some challenges going into our last podcast, they had frittered away a number of leads, as we recall. And we're just kind of wondering, how are they going to kind of get going forward in the way we wanted them to be playing Hurricanes hockey, as Rod Brindamore would like it. And that's changed. And boy, has it ever changed. And last weekend, they were just unbelievable. And they now sit first overall in the East. And in the Metro, they're 7 points ahead of number 2 Islanders. So, sitting in good shape. One of the areas that has really been a story, of course, has been goaltending. Katie?
Well, there's no bigger story on the Carolina Hurricanes right now than the emergence of Brandon Bussi, who was insurance to the insurance at the beginning of the season, with claiming him off of waivers in case Primo, who was supposed to be the insurance, was claimed. And once he was claimed, he ended up on the Canes. And then once Kochetkov went down with injury, not only was he spot starting, he became the main starter and has had a great amount of success. And it's been such a fun story to follow. I admit that he absolutely took me by surprise. I was, as of a couple of months ago, I was saying, January 1st will come around and Kochetkov and Anderson will be back to doing their thing, and they can sign him to a contract that makes other teams not want to claim him and send him down to Chicago. And we definitely do not want him in Chicago, and he's definitely not going to pass through waivers, even if that were a possibility.
No, that's for sure.
I am here for it. Bussi has been performing amazingly for the Canes, and it's to the point now where, when a lot of people question, is this just a phase? Is he having a few good games? Is he going to come back down to earth? The answer seems to be no. And the reason that that's been proven is because he had that game he struggled against the Canadiens. Of course, the Canes as a team struggled against the Canadiens. But he bounced back. He didn't let that set a trend for him. He didn't let it get into his head. And he's come back with 2 really strong games since then. He only gave up 1 goal against the Panthers, and he only gave up 1 goal against the Sabres, and has had some phenomenal saves in the meantime. I mean, the game against the Sabres is probably the best one of the season for him, and that's even over the shutout that he had earlier. So it's been great. And the stats, if you look in the stats, he is doing really well. The save percentage isn't as high as a lot of other teams because, as we know, the Canes don't give up nearly as many shots on goal as the average team. And so when 1 goal does get by you, it does end up hurting your save percentage a little bit more than if another goalie was to give up only 1 goal. But because he's consistently given up only 1 goal, I think 13 of his starts, or at least 13 of his wins, he has only given up 2 or fewer goals.
Wow.
That is phenomenal. That is over 2/3 of his wins. He has not just held the door closed or shut the door on hope for the other teams. I mean, he has really stood his ground and been super effective. So because of that, his goals against average is in the top 5 of the NHL.
Number 2, actually, right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And if we go and look at his hockey viz chart, you can see why he hasn't given up a lot of goals is because the area closest to his crease is blue, 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 blue. And if you're not familiar with these charts, blue means that shooters there have a bad shooting percentage against him in those areas. And so blue is exactly what we want to see for him. And it is blue across the board. He has a phenomenal save percentage when it comes to high danger chances against. And that's, again, more impressive because the Canes don't allow a lot to get through, but a lot of what they are stopping are the low danger and mid danger chances that teams tend to create, that tend to give goalies that feel for the game.
Yeah.
And Bussi's not seeing a lot of those low danger, mid danger chances, but teams are good. They have good hockey players. And so those high danger chances do happen. And a lot of times for him, they happen after he's had an extended period of inactivity. And so his mental strength and focus that he has demonstrated in the crease has been phenomenal because it is hard to have a lot of action happening in other places and then all of a sudden be put on the spot and having to make a high danger save. No better example for that than that one that he made on the 2-on-0 against the Sabres when there was the pass back and forth that Thompson shot and he was able to snag with his glove. I mean, just fantastic. So I am excited to see what else he has in store for the Canes. And if he can keep up this particular level of play, I don't see how the Hurricanes aren't the favorite coming out of the East when it comes to the playoffs.
Well, it's interesting because Alex Faust, who was the announcer for TNT, said, he scores. Okay.
Yes.
It scored. And so, he and then he goes, oh, he didn't score. Oh,
Mike Maniscalco did the same thing. Everybody who was watching the TV did the exact same thing.
It was amazing. And you know what? That was probably one of the best goaltending performances all around that I've seen. I mean, he made so many great saves because right after that, of course, he made that great save on the defenseman with the Sabres as well on, their big dog guy.
Darlene?
Yeah, Rasmus Dahlin, yeah, for sure. So he made that great save on Dahlin and several other times on Tage Thompson. So Thompson, I'm sure, was in the night was screaming with nightmares of the many against Brandon Bussi. You know, Bussi, I mentioned he's number 2 in the league right now. He's got a 2.20 goals against average. He's the first goalie in history to win 18 games in 22 outings, which is ridiculous. And one of the things that was really fun on that broadcast, and I don't know, Aaron, if you saw that, was Henrik Lundqvist. And what did Henrik have to say about this?
Yeah, he had a great quote. He said, I love everything about his game right now. I don't think this is a fluke. I think he's really setting a nice foundation for his NHL career. So coming from that source, people that are trying to brush this off as, oh, well, he's going to come back down to earth. I mean, realistically, is he going to come down a little? He's going to have to because nobody maintains this level forever. But just the ability to come back, like Katie said, if you do have a game that doesn't quite go your way, that's an incredible skill, and it's very necessary for goalies, especially who play in front of the Carolina Hurricanes. So I think that's really great. And then he's also, I remember that Lundqvist said something about his calmness in net, and that's something. We have, we have that with Freddie Anderson. That's very much how Freddie plays. And I do love how Pyotr Kochetkov plays. I think we're going to enjoy seeing him back next year when he's gotten healthy again. But he does have more of what people jokingly call the goalie with a knife approach. So he's not the calm factor isn't quite there, but. Having all 3 of those guys in the system, and even though Kochetkov won't be back for a while, it's pretty exciting for Canes fans to look at this goaltending and say, for once, they're going to be going into the playoffs, and that's not going to be the big question,
Well, and it was fun that there was a history of Brandon Bussi and Henrik Lundqvist. Back in the day, we saw that as a child, Brandon had met Henrik Lundqvist. And as he said, he didn't say a word to him, but he was in awe. But it was interesting because it was kind of the tables turned, because it seemed like Lundqvist was pretty much in awe of Brandon Bussi, and he had many different things to say about his technique, the way he plays goal, the way he thinks, his ability to get in front of the play and do a lot of things. And I think that's one of the things about Brandon. And, he paid his dues. We know he's a 27-year-old. He was outstanding in the American Hockey League. And we've talked about this before. He was one of the most highly rated goaltenders outside the NHL a year ago. So he's got a pedigree. He's ready to go. He's not going to continue to win at this rate, like 80 or 90% of his games, whatever it is, but he's going to keep winning. And the other thing that you mentioned, Katie, which I think is interesting, Freddie Anderson, and we'll talk about Freddie in a minute. Freddie played a tremendous game last game. Now, one of the things about that game is he saw some shots. And one of the areas that Freddie has struggled has been what we talked about so much, is where they go 8 or 9 or 10 minutes, and we'll hear this in the game, there hasn't been a shot on the Canes for 10 minutes or something, and that's hard on the goalie. And then there's this high danger chance, somebody makes a gaffe and there's a breakaway or something, and the next thing you know, it's in the net. And I thought, again, because they don't get these easy shots and they can't rack up a nice save percentage, the game's tougher for them. And it just seems that Brandon Bussi has a psyche that he seems to be able to play in that. And particularly as the game goes on, he seems to just get better and better. So great story there. One last thing on Bussi before we talk about Fred for a minute. He's got a contract coming. He's a UFA right now. He's in a situation where, he could move on if he wanted to. What do we think is going to happen with Brandon? Aaron?
Well, I had to ask the question on Twitter, and it was interesting to see so many different responses. There were numbers as low as, 1 million and change for a couple of years, and there were people wanting to lock him up right now for 5 or 6 million, for a number of years. I think that the Canes front office, like it always does, will have a very good idea of what the price should be and where it should be set. And it's going to come down to, probably what Bussi and his agent think is realistic. But I think as far as the fit, it's clear that he loves being here. He can't stop talking about the guys in the room and how great it's been to play with them. I don't think that there's going to be any desire on his part not to work this out with the Canes, even if they have to do some negotiating. But, I could see him, I think you said, Tom, around 4 million. I could see something like that. And then it's just a question of what's the term going to be? Is it going to be, maybe it's not 4, maybe it's 3.5 because it's more years, so they'll work on that. They'll get all that sorted out. But I think it's going to be a priority for the Canes because, like Katie has pointed out many, many times, the way the Canes play, it takes a special kind of goaltender to be able to handle long stretches of nothing and then a flurry of high danger shots. Since he's shown he can do that, they need to lock him up as soon as they can.
Well, it's interesting because we've talked so much, and certainly last year in the off season, we talked about the concerns with goaltending, and particularly, Freddie. We felt this would be his last year in any case with the Canes, and saying, hey, they've got to go get a goalie. And a good goalie, we've gone through those discussions over and over again, and here they have it. They picked him up on waivers of all crazy things, and the next thing you know, they've got one of the better goaltenders in the league right now, the way he's playing. So quite a story. I'm a personal fan of big goaltenders. I love the fact we've got 2 large guys in goal right now with him and Fred, and I think that's great. And so speaking of Freddie, I just mentioned, I thought he played a great game the other night. What are we thinking about with Fred these days? Katie?
I think I'm still nervous. One good game does not mean that he has bounced back yet. I definitely think that I personally and Canes fans generally would like to see a consistent string of strong starts from him. Games where, like Aaron mentioned, he does go through those 8, 9, 10-minute stretches without seeing a shot and is able to respond or have a strong response when the puck does come his way. Just need to have some consistency from him, because unfortunately the only consistency he's shown so far this season is that perhaps that age-related regression is finally catching up to him, and he's just a split second too slow really measure up to what the Canes style of play needs from their goalie. And that's not necessarily the worst news in the world. If that's the case, he can still be a very serviceable backup to Bussi for the rest of the season. And then go from there, hopefully still be able to put in a strong performance for Team Denmark in the Olympics. Although we know that probably means he's going to be seeing plenty of shots and games. lot more opportunity to work on those reflexes. But jury's still out as far as I'm concerned when it comes to Freddie. That last game was phenomenal. He did a really good job. He kept the Canes in the game while they were trying to find their legs on the back-to-back. But gotta have more than one good game before we can say that problem solved.
No, I totally agree. And I think the key right now is that Freddie is the backup, which is kind of a good situation to have. We're not sitting there saying, hey, he's got to play every other game or whatever the case may be. And, of course, if Fred gets back to his game, and we know how well he played last year for the playoff run that the Canes had, he was outstanding for most of that. And I think he's a guy that if you've got him healthy and playing well, and you've got Brandon Bussi, all of a sudden the Canes goaltending is right there with the best of them. So it's good stuff. And, one of the reasons I think Fred's going to be feeling a lot better is, as we talk about the D-core, the return of Jacob Slavin. I don't think there could be anything more monumental for the Canes than bringing back Slavin. He's just been incredible. What are you thinking about Slavin, Aaron?
Well, it's just wonderful to have him back, like you said. I mean, it is such a different team with Jacob Slavin, and I think that's kind of one of those areas where, people who don't watch the Canes and don't know anything about Slavin, this has gotten better since the Four Nations last year when people watched him there. But a lot of people don't realize just how elite he is at the kind of game that he plays. Because, we were talking about this a little bit on Twitter today. People tend to evaluate players based on point totals, even defensemen, which you should never evaluate a defenseman based on how many points he's putting up. That's not, that only applies to those true offensive defensemen, and there aren't that many of them in the league, But when it comes to a defensive defenseman like Jacob Slavin, looking at his point totals isn't going to tell you anything about him as a player. It's how he manages to shut down other teams' top lines again and again. His back checking, his stick work. I mean, it's just, and he doesn't do it with a lot of, he's not shoving people around out there. He can do that, but he doesn't have to. He's just smarter than, he's ahead of the play, but with the hockey IQ, he knows where things are going, when he can see a play unraveling before it even gets there. And, he's always in the right place at the right time. So that kind of positioning and just everything that he does, all the little things he does. And I think that, when the Canes didn't have him, they were doing a valiant job trying to stay on top of that stuff themselves without him. The fact that they managed to continue a winning record without him was, phenomenal, given the number of people that were coming in and out. I mean, you also had Miller injured for a while there. Chatfield was out for a while. I mean, everybody was out at one point or another.
The only one.
And Gostisbehere is still out. So at least as of last game. So when you see Slavin come back in, then all of a sudden you realize they were having to try to make up for all of that. And they did their best. But when you have a star level player, really, Slavin belongs in star conversations, and he doesn't get in them nearly enough. So having him back has made a huge difference to the team's success.
Well, and one of the things we've seen, of course, is that they've been able to move players down in the pecking order, so to speak. And one of the biggest challenges you have is a guy like Sean Walker, and kudos to him for outstanding play, but playing 24, 25 minutes a night, it's insane. After last year, he was like 16, 17 minutes. So that's the kind of situation where now he's back on the second pair alongside Andrei Miller, playing the minutes that they should be playing, and balancing out a little bit more. And that was great. Now, Katie, when we look at Slavin statistically and take an analytical look at him, what kind of things do you see with Jacob?
Oh, it is amazing what he is able to do when on the ice. I went back on the natural stat trick, and just for January, just for his most recent return from injury, with the assumption that not only has he recovered from this second injury that he sustained, but it gave him more time to fully heal from the long-term injury he had from whatever he was dealing with over the summer into the beginning of the year. So I'm expecting that this particular, was it 5 games he's been back so far, is the true Jacob Slavin. I did it by rate because there are a lot of defensemen that have played more games than he has, and so it would look more aggressive for them. So you look at shot attempts against per 60. When he is on the ice, the Canes only give up just over 25 shot attempts per 60 minutes. If you say Slavin plays 20 minutes per game and divide that by 3, that means the other team is only trying to shoot the puck 8 or 9 times in a game when he's out there.
Yes.
Because and a big reason for that, I mean, the Kane system helps with that, but he is the one out there pickpocketing the other team, clogging up lanes, preventing them from even having the opportunity to do anything effective. You break it down even further, the actual shots on goal per 60 is 13.5. So half of those shot attempts don't even make it through to the goalie. And we know, of course, because of his stick placement, because of his blocks, he's very, very involved in that particular number. The expected goals against is just over 1. Mm-hmm. The scoring chances against is just under 10. And the high danger chances against is about 4.5. All of those stats with him on the ice is first in the league. There is not a single defenseman out there who has a bigger impact on his team's shot and goal suppression than Jacob Slavin. Not one. He is the best in every single category.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right.
Amazing.
And you can see it with the way the Canes are playing right now. I mean, he just changes all the rules for the Canes. And you watch him on the ice, as you say, he just plays a calm game. He's just in control and he's on the blue. And I think he's teamed nicely with Jalen Chatfield, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to talk about the fact that some of the players, as you mentioned earlier, had a chance to see extra minutes, play in situations they may not have played in because Jacob was out. And that, I think that turns out to be a great thing for the Canes, because now you've got, a group of folks who are, they're getting healthy again. They're starting to really feel comfortable about what they're doing. And in particular, I wanted to mention Alexander Nikishin. Now, you know that, I just love Alex. I think he's incredible. He, tremendous right from the outset offensively. We saw him do things. He let that shot go 90-odd miles an hour. Like, it was just incredible. And he scores some goals like that, and you just go, wow, we've wanted something like this for a long time, and he's just firing that thing. And we saw the other night in that Sabres game, I think was one of his best defensive games.
Oh, yes.
He was just on point. And he got a breakaway. He did so many things that you just sat there and said, you know what? That's the Alexander Nikishin I was expecting, and here he is. And he just did so many cool things. Erin, what did you see with Alex?
Well, I think that, you kind of covered a lot of it by talking about the fact that he's getting all these opportunities because of the extra minutes he's had while some of the other players have been injured and out of the lineup. And in a way, you wouldn't want that to be the situation for any team, but it is a very big silver lining for Nikishin, because we know that Rod Brind'Amour tends to bring new players, especially young new players, in rather slowly. There's a lot of caution. He doesn't tend to hand them the keys to the power play and all the rest of it right off the bat. It's not something, especially somebody coming from another country who doesn't speak English all that fluently. This would be. If everybody had been healthy from the beginning, we would have seen Alexander Nikishin playing third pair minutes with probably no special teams time at all. And I think there would have been some disappointment from Canes fans about both that usage and the fact that you're not getting to see the kind of development that you want to see in the player. So in a way, the situation has been that they've kind of been forced to accelerate his development. And because of his age, he's not a young rookie. Because of his previous experience, he's thriving in those challenges. He's actually There was the one game after one game when Brendan Moore said something along the lines of, his offensive work is good. We know we've done that all along. We just need him to take the next step defensively. And it was the very next game against the Buffalo Sabres where he put on that kind of defensive clinic. And I think that, this is the kind of thing where if he understands what they want from him and it's being communicated well, he's going to do it because he's the kind of player who can rise to those occasions and can learn those things and take the time to do them right. So I don't think there's any problem there. And I have to say that shot on the power play, when I saw that the other night, when he got that power play goal, I had flashbacks to Shea Weber on the Montreal Canadiens, because Weber had that slap shot, not the same shot, but the slap shot that would be, 100 miles an hour. And, the guys tasked with providing net front for that always had to kind of hope they weren't going to get injured by friendly fire. But it is that lethal. And I think that the Canes have never had somebody, I think that we know the impact that Burns had when he was still able to get that shot off quickly enough in the first year or so that he was with the Canes. And it made a difference to the power play. So I really hope that Nikishin will be allowed to continue to get some of these opportunities and do these things because they need that.
Yeah, and for sure. And I think, again, he's definitely got the mind too. Like when you watch him on the power play, he's very smart back there. He knows where everybody is. He sees the ice extremely well. And that's what's really impressed me about Alex. We knew he could shoot the puck. That was no question.
Oh yeah.
And he's got one of the hardest shots in the league. And one of the things that we're seeing too is that folks are starting to defer to him. So they're trying to find a way to get him that puck in his wheelhouse, because they know that if he shoots it and it's on net, it's either going in or there's going to be a rebound. So, it's all kind of working for them. And, again, I think there were some good things said about him the other night by Rod Brindamore. He said some positive things about he's starting to come along defensively. We're seeing it. We're feeling, there's encouragement here. And I think, again, a couple of things that are really working here is Alex is starting to feel really good about himself because he's hearing some good positive things being said. He's being put in situations, whether it's killing penalties or on the power play, where he's making a difference. And of course, with Jacob Slavin back, you couldn't have a better mentor.
I would say that the biggest adjustment that Nikishin has had to deal with is just the speed at which the NHL game has played. Yeah. And we have seen that at certain times that he gets caught out of position or he isn't able to quite catch up with the play on the back check, or he pinches in too far, stuff like that. And those types of mistakes are becoming fewer and farther between. They're not completely gone yet, and you're not going to expect them. It's hard to be a Jacob Slavin all the time, and we just need Alexander Nikishin to be Alexander Nikishin. I do expect a lot of Slavin to start rubbing off on him.
Yes.
And one of the things I have been impressed with is that Nikishin does seem to be hustling more. When he had that breakaway, at first I was like, which penalty killer is that on the breakaway? And I was very pleasantly surprised to figure out that had been Nikishin flying up the ice. I did not know that dude had that foot speed in him. I thought he was a touch slow to be a Hurricane and was going to have to compensate. But it's starting to pick up, and his stick work, that's been one of the most impressive things on defense for me, is that he does seem to have that innate sense of how to use his stick. And there are a lot of times that he breaks up a dangerous opportunity for the other team just by really smart placement with his stick. So I think that he is starting to really feel the NHL speed of the game and is starting to settle in, and that he is going to just keep getting better, because now that Slavin's back, Slavin can take the most demanding matchups, which will give Nikishin just a little bit more opportunity to play against slightly lesser competition. And so he can really hone those skills and take advantage of the other players on the ice that he's matched up against, and fast forward his development into a top D-man in this league.
Yeah, and I think he's teamed very nicely with Joel Nystrom. I only have positive things to say about Joel. I think he's just done an incredible job. And I was delighted when they recalled him and brought him back in, because I think he's a better fit with Alex on that third pairing with Ghost out. And I think he's done a real nice job. So, again, lots of good stuff there. Now, it's going to get interesting because when Gostisbehere returns, how's this going to play out? So do we expect there'll be changes? Who will move with who? What do we think we're going to see? Katie, any thoughts on that?
Well, I think with Slavin and Chatfield seeming to be pretty solid and Miller and Walker really starting to create some chemistry, we know that Rod Brind'Amour, especially when it comes to his D pairs, is a creature of habit. And so if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
I believe that Ghost will slide in with Nikishin on that third pair, and perhaps that they'll get a little bit higher balance of the minutes than that Nystrom-Nikishin pairing is currently getting. It also provides a D pair that he can put out in offensively advantageous situations. Gotta love the word advantageous, right? If you listen to
I think we heard that the other day.
So plenty of advantageous situations offensively, because the thing is, it used to be that teams could cheat towards Ghost when he was in the offensive zone, knowing that he was going to be the main threat from the blue line. But if he and Nikishin are paired together, then they have to play them honestly, because it can either be Ghost with his slick passing or his seeing eye shots, or it can be Nikishin with his raw power. Either one of them can be a difference maker in the offensive zone. And so I think that's where Brind'Amour's going to go once Ghost is back, is he'll be with Nikishin.
Yeah, and they played well earlier in the year, so I think that's fine. And either one of them can play in the offside, so no problem. But yeah, it's very exciting. So D-core looking good. I thought we'd move up and talk a bit about the forwards, and you can't start talking about the forward crew without talking about Andrei Svechnikov. Oh my goodness, he's been on a tear, and he had 5 goals in 3 games, so he just keeps doing it. Playing extremely well, and seems to have just an incredible chemistry right now with Sebastian Aho. I think Aho assisted on every single one of those goals, and they were real nice setups. So something going on with those guys. Aaron, you want to kick it off and talk a little bit about the forward crew? Thanks.
Well, I think if we're going to start by talking a little bit about Andrei Svechnikov, we have to talk about how he's playing like a power forward, and that is what they have needed him to do. I think that it's been hard for him to do that in previous years because of all the fluctuations and the up and down the lines. We've had times with Svechnikov paired with Dad's line. We've had him on second. So I think that putting him on the top line with Sebastian Aho is a vote of confidence that says, we know you can be this guy. We saw you do it in the playoffs last year. We know you can be this guy. So that's all we want you to do is be this player. And he's done a great job of doing that. He had the hat trick against the Devils. That was so much fun. But that in itself is an example of the kind of thing that a power forward can do. They can take over games. And the Canes have needed that. I think it wasn't that long ago that I was having a conversation with some people on Twitter when I said, it's not, you look at the Canes and what are they missing? This was during their slump there, It's not so much a position. It's not so much that they're missing a specific player, but they need swagger. They need those guys who believe in their own talent enough to say, okay, we know the game plan and we know what we're doing. We're not going to change those things. But at this particular moment, somebody has to elevate. Somebody has to step up and do something more. Yeah. Whether it's just being more aggressive about staying on those chances, trying to get those rebounds, parking in front of the net, whatever it is. And Svechnikov has been doing all of that, and it's paying off tremendously for him and also for Sebastian Aho, who has been free to do what he loves best, which is to be the setup man. I think that when you want Aho to be the top scorer on that line in terms of goal scoring, you're not really going to see that as often these days. He doesn't seem to be doing that like he did when he was a younger player. But as long as he can feed the puck to Andrei Svechnikov, and Svech is the one who can bury it, then that's a great duo, and they need to keep that duo together, I think.
Yeah, and Aho's only got 9 assists in his last 5 games, so I think he's
only 9.
I think
the nice trend that's been happening though with Aho and Svech, and particularly Jarvis up there, is the fact that Svech hasn't had to be a big part of the forecheck. He's allowed to kind of sag back and get lost in the play. Let Aho and Jarvis go up and muck in the corners and dig the puck out, and let And then so many of the goals that he's scored recently has been the two of them leading into the zone and pushing the defense back. And he's gone in and found the soft spot in the defense in order for the puck to get to him and let him wire that hard shot that he has. And that has been a recipe for success that has really created a lot of opportunities for that top line, and the ones that he's been able to cash in, even on the one that he had in Buffalo, where Aho was the one that got it behind the net and skated it out, and he went back post and was able, because of his size and physicality, like Aaron was saying, playing like a power forward, was able to get his stick down and get position on the defenseman, who was not a small defenseman by any stretch of the imagination, and be able to tap that puck in backdoor. So this is fantastic, because we know how well they played last year in the playoffs. Yeah. And that was with very little time to build any kind of chemistry in the regular season, with all of the mixing and matching and just fits and starts that they were playing with. If they're able to actually develop some chemistry and get some consistency together, hopefully, as Jarvis gets his feet under him a little bit more after having come back with injury, as a trio, and be playing well going into the playoffs, and then find another level in the playoffs, it's really going to be a need filled for the Canes as far as overcoming their consistent exits in the recent history of the playoffs for them. So I'm thrilled with that, and I know we're going to be getting into it elsewhere, but it worked. Even if Jarvis not going, it works with Ehlers there too. So as long as there's someone to give him the space and the opportunity to be effective, I just see this starting to really roll and click for a while.
For sure. And I think on NHL Network, they're talking with Seth Jarvis today, and he did say that they asked him, do you think this is your year to win the cup? And he said, I think we've got the team. So he's definitely a believer that with this crew, and when he's playing his best, and I'm sure he will come back to top form, you're going to see something special there. And, you talked about, we talked about Nikolaj Ehlers last time. We're all kind of excited about the fact that Ehlers was up on that top line and was just flying, and it was great stuff. And actually, Svech was on the right wing, which we love him on the right side, but he's continued on just fine on the left side, so that's okay. And now Ehlers has gone to play with the dads and with the two Jordans, Martinuk and Stahl. And, we kind of wondered, and there was a lot of discussion, around saying, some folks were saying this for a long time. I think Paul Stastny had said, hey, he should probably be with those guys together. They'd be great together, whatever the case was. And I think we've seen that. He's played extremely well, and the two Jordans can give him room out there. They're playing heavy work in the offensive zone, and all of a sudden the puck pops out, and there's Nikolaj Ehlers. And he's flying right now. They call him Fly for the right reason. That guy is flying on the ice. And, of course, he had a hat trick the other night. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the dads with Nikolaj Ehlers?
Well, me being the big mouth I am, I ran out to X when I saw those lines and was like, what? Ehlers on the down line? So then I had to issue a correction. But really, we were all thinking it, right? Why would you, it didn't make sense in my mind that they would do that, because when I think of the Stahl line, I think of the line that's going to get these heavy matchups, have to play defensively most of the time, and not really get, even when they get opportunities in the offensive zone, it's more like, let's hold on to the puck so that the other guys don't get it, not let's actually do something with it. That's been one of the frustrating things about the Stahl line, is that they do have the puck a lot, but typically that doesn't amount to anything. So, they get their chances, but the chances are, they're not exactly the most high danger chances in the world, and they're not, even the low danger ones don't always go, because of just the fact that that's just how that line has been. So you put somebody like Ehlers up there and you're thinking, well, he's not going to get the same quality of opportunity because they're going to be doing so much defensive work, but that's not how it's worked out. It doesn't take him long. They don't have to be holding the zone. They don't have to set up a forecheck cycle that, passes the puck around for the, a whole 30 seconds of a shift or something for Ehlers to get an opportunity. He's, like you said, he's they call him Fly for a reason. He's fast. And so it doesn't take it. one little puck battle along the wall, and that's all it takes to get him the puck and get him a good quality chance, and that's what he's been capitalizing on. Mm-hmm. So against Florida, I think that the fact that the hat trick came against Florida was incredibly cathartic for the Canes fans who have suffered through games in the Eastern Conference Final where they, at the end of the day when it's all over and they're back home and their playoffs are over. Everyone says the line. They did everything but score. So we want them to score against the Florida Panthers. We want them to score against all of the top teams as they're going through the playoffs. And the fact that you've got somebody who can do that is exciting. Yeah. So let's see how that goes going forward. I know they were playing the Panthers and their AHL affiliates. I know they had too many injuries to count. I mean, Anton Lundell was their 1C in that game, but it doesn't matter because it just felt good.
Yeah, I mean, for me, anytime we can beat the Florida Panthers 9-1, I'm probably the happiest guy in the globe because that was just astounding. They just kept scoring and scoring and scoring. And actually, I watched the game mostly on replay. I think it was 3-1 at the end of the second, and I decided that I'd pick up the third period the next day. And I happened to see, by accident, the score, and I thought, that can't be right. That's got to be crazy, right? 9-1. And I watched the game, and it is 9-1. But anyway, so good things happening with the Stahl line, of course. The top line is great. We've been seeing some good work with Logan Stankoven and particularly his chemistry with Taylor Hall. But are we comfortable with Logan? I mean, is he going to be the centerman that we want to go into the playoffs with, carrying that that 2B line or whatever you want to call it? And are we convinced that Taylor Hall is going to continue to play at the outstanding rate that he's playing right now? Because we've seen him at different times. He seems to kind of, I guess, lessen his performance level somewhat. What do we think about that line? And do we feel comfortable that they're a line that Canes can continue to go with and go into the playoffs with? Katie, what are you thinking?
Short term? Sure. Short term, fine. Long term? Ain't no way. Ain't no way. I am not a Stankoven believer. I think it's crazy that he has not been able to produce with higher level players than Taylor Hall, but that somehow Taylor Hall is his lucky charm and able to make that line more effective than it has been with just about any other configuration. But that is not a second line or even a third line for a Stanley Cup contender, in my opinion. They have got to get another, we've been calling it on Twitter, another 2C, even though we all know Stahl is the true 2C. But
sure.
For the sake of consistency and dialogue, they need a 2C. And they probably, if they really, really want to be serious about contending for the Cup, they need another big, strong winger.
Yeah.
For the Canes to be in the best position possible, Taylor Hall needs to be their 13th forward.
Wow.
And provided everybody else is healthy.
I have him on the fourth line. I don't have him sitting on the line.
I would slot in Carrier and Robinson over him in a heartbeat.
Wow.
On the fourth line.
In the sense that he's not a true fourth line guy, yeah. Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see him working. I don't see him working with and he is an absolute liability on that top line. He has had so many giveaways when he's played up with Aho, and he's better. Like I said, I don't know what it is between him and Stankoven. It does seem to work, but if you're going to improve for the playoffs, that line just too often they will have great possession. They'll have lots of zone time, but then they will get muscled off the puck and the puck will go in the other direction. And so it looks like that line has been dominant because they've had it for a while in the offensive zone, but the actual quality chances that take place are for the other team. Just, Blake and Stankoven are great players, but they need bigger, stronger bodies to guide and anchor that line. And Stankoven at center is not it. And if Stankoven's moving to the wing, Taylor Hall does not need to be anywhere near that line.
Wow. Aaron, Any rebuttal on that? Oh,
Well,
man.
I don't know that I'm gonna go full rebuttal. I don't know. I think that the team really likes Taylor Hall, and I think they like how he's mentoring
Yes.
some of those younger players. So I think that they don't necessarily want to push him out or make him feel like he's not a key part of the team. I understand where you're coming from with the 13 forward thing, like I was just saying, because if you're building a fourth line for the playoffs and you want fourth line caliber players, you want Robinson and Carrier on that fourth line, because Hall is the way he sees the game is more like a top six player. It's not a natural thing for him to turn around and be, oh, well, I need to play like, a grinder down here, So it's going to be harder for him to do that if that's where they end up. As far as the question of Stankoven at center is, I think that his personal defensive play has been good, but it's a lot to ask him to carry the defensive play on a line. It's just a lot to expect for a young player and a player of his size, to do that game after game. I don't know if either of you follow a person named George Blankenship. I'm going to give him a little shout out here on Twitter. He's been doing these nice little recaps where he goes through some of the stats and data that Katie likes to talk about, the possession numbers, shots for, shots against, that kind of thing. And how each line has done in various games. And his most recent one, of course, was for the Buffalo Sabres game. And he pointed out that the second line actually had the worst numbers. And you could tell that because it was their presence on the ice that was causing that second period in particular to be as much of a fluctuation as it was, where the Canes didn't look as good and were not, doing as well. And a lot of that was stemming from their line getting, having those seeming opportunities, like Katie said, and then the puck goes the other way, So defensively, as a line, they have to work, not just for one player. So there again, I think you're right about that, and they are probably going to have to do something. I also had a little, just for fun, I ran a little poll because people were arguing about if the Canes were going to include a young player in a major blockbuster trade, hypothetically, not that there is one coming, but if there was one coming, would it be Stankoven or would it be Blake? And it was surprising to me that the amount of discourse there was on that. So I put a poll up and I said, which player do you think is the better player? And astonishingly enough, the last I checked it was running nearly 80% in favor of Jackson Blake and only 20% in favor of Logan Stankoven. When you look at the contracts given to those two players, it's pretty clear the organization sees it the other way around. Yeah. So I wonder how much of Stankoven's natural creativity and skill is being stifled by him being asked to play center, because you wouldn't think that the perception would be that different. I thought it would be maybe 60-40 or something like that. But no, right now, Canes fans that have taken the time to respond to that very unscientific poll are telling me that they think that Jackson Blake is the better player. So that's an interesting little snapshot of where the opinion is running right now. And I think it has a lot to do with Stankoven being asked to do all of this defensive work at center and not drive the play. And I mean, when you think about it, he's still on pace for something like 39 points, which, again, the biggest need they've had from a 2C is a 2C who can drive offense.
Yes. No, I agree. And, I think, it's going to be a tough discussion. The Canes are definitely going to be interested to try to upgrade at center. I believe that strongly, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the rumor mill discussion. I don't think there's any question they're going to want to do that. The question is, will they be able to? And that's going to be something we're going to have to try to figure out. But in any case, right now, that line's doing fine. They're doing very well. In fact, it was nice to see that Stankoven had a little bit of a run. I think he scored in 3 straight games or 4. It was whatever it was. It was great. And Taylor Hall's been effective. Certainly, he's got 11 goals on the year, which to me is I didn't really expect that at the 50-game mark for Taylor Hall. So it's good. So anyway, that's good stuff. Now, we had an injury with Eric Robinson. Anybody know exactly what's going on with Eric right now?
We won't hear till tomorrow.
Shoulder? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's what it looked like. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, if not probably not dislocated, but I don't know, strained, hyperextended, something like that.
Yeah. So he could be out for a little while. Shoulder injuries are sometimes a little bit tough, so we'll see how that goes. And he's had some injuries in the past, so he's a big guy. He sometimes plays a heavy game, but he can be a little bit brittle, as we've seen. So we'll see. But they can put Kokaniemi in. He'll fit in nicely on that fourth line right now until they decide what they're going to do. In any case, okay. So let's talk a little bit about special teams because I think there's a story here for sure. But kicking it off, looking at the penalty kill, the Canes sitting right now at 16th in the league, 79.58%. That's not bad. That's way down from where they normally are. I think last year they ended second overall in the league in penalty kill. And, it's been a bit of a tough run. And, of course, missing Jacob Slavin hasn't been good news. What are you thinking about the PK these days, Aaron?
I think that you're right that it's starting to look better, and I think that we go back to both the Slavin effect and the impact of Bussi, because those are the two things we've already kind of touched on. Both of those are huge factors in why the PK has gone from struggling a bit to starting to look like its old self. I still think there's work to be done to get it, back to where we expect the Canes to be on the PK, but they're getting closer. So, I mean, as long as things keep trending in this direction with Slavin back, then I don't think there's going to be any issues.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is a lot stronger. Again, you've had different folks try to fill in on that PK unit. And now they've been going with Jalen Chatfield and, of course, Jacob Slavin as the number one defensive pair. And those guys are a great shutdown pair. And, boy, the difference on the penalty kill is like night and day. So really excited about the potential there. But on the power play, what a story this has been. The Canes have now moved up to 13th or 12th in the league, 21.9%. Just incredible performance since December 5th. They have just been incredible. They were sitting at 30th on December 5th at 13.7%. So we talked about that. I know we talked about that very closely at some point and said, what are we going to do with this power play? And since then, they've had a 30.7% success rate, and they're number 2 overall in the league. Only the Oilers have been better since December 5th, and they've been just amazing. So they've been doing a sensational job. What are you thinking about the power play? Katie, thoughts?
I'll love to refer back to my trusty Hockey Viz charts. And so if you go and look at the Canes chart, which shows shot volume. It doesn't show goals necessarily, but it shows shot volume. There's this big swath right in the middle that shows that the Canes are putting a lot of pucks on net. They are being super, super aggressive in probably 2/3 of the area. There's one area off in the face-off circle that they need to find somebody who will shoot a little bit more from over there and help keep the PK honest. But it's great to see them just really being aggressive and sticking to their identity and really working hard, because it's not been one source of the power play success. You've had, it's been mostly the first unit, but it's been Svech at times getting hot. A couple of Aho. Jarvis been pitching in recently. Gostisbehere, before he went down, was being super effective. And then once he got injured, Nikishin's come in and done a good job contributing. It's been across the board. My one hesitation to say that it's fully back is I do feel like a few of the goals that they've had have been fluky or lucky, not a result of the process and more a breakdown for the other team or a last minute kind of bounce that happened. So you kind of have to take everything that they've been doing with a grain of salt. But for the most part, it has been looking a lot better and a lot more effective. And I would just be happy if they come to not necessarily a happy middle from where they started to where they are now, but a good 25% clip from here on out would be fantastic success on the power play to finish off the regular season.
Well, one of the things we've seen with Shane Gostisbehere out, of course, Alex Nikishin has had his chance, and he's been really, I think, very, very strong leading the power play. And one of the things that we've seen is we're starting to see more setups, folks deferring back to Alex to get that big shot off. And boy, it's really causing a lot of chaos. We love that causing chaos for the Canes. So definitely good stuff. And one of the things that I think we've seen, which we talked about so much, a number of podcasts, has been movement on the power play. And they're really showing that. And one of the guys that I think is really making that happen is Nikolaj Ehlers. And Ehlers right now, he's sitting second in power play points on the Canes. He's got 15. Sebastian Aho has 16. So you can see that Ehlers is really having an impact on the power play. And yeah, he's moving. Aho's moving. They're moving that puck around. They're setting up good quality shots. And I think the power play is the way that we hoped it would look when we talked about it so many times and saying, they've got the horses, why don't they score? And we're definitely seeing it right now. So great stuff. Jarvis is back now, so he brings another dimension. He scored a nice goal the other night against the Sabres on the power play as well. So good stuff. And interesting thing on that goal that he scored, which I'm sure you probably saw, was that the individual that was causing havoc in front of the net was Alexander Nikishin. So it was kind of interesting. He's up in front of the net and getting in with the goalie and the defenseman. And, of course, then comes Seth Jarvis, and he scores. So it's kind of fun to see that they're all getting involved and they're all feeling good about it. So it's good stuff. Interesting stats. If you look at the way that this power play has kind of evolved, earlier in the season, we were choking ourselves because in October, they were 9.7%. In November, they got up to 16.7. So we're thinking, oh, this is okay. But then it really started to hit. December, 24.4. January so far, 36.4%. This is just unbelievable. Like if you look at those numbers and shake your head and say, this can't be right. Holy man. So it's the other thing about this, and we all know this, is confidence. Once they start getting confidence, anything's possible. So it's good stuff. Okay. So some encouragement on the PK. One of the best power plays in the National Hockey League right now, no question. So it's fun stuff on the special teams. And that's something also that Seth Jarvis talked about, was the special team stuff. And, when you get into the playoffs, that's something that's so critical for the Canes because, in past playoffs, guess what's happened? Their power play dried up. And that was a major concern for them, and it caused them a lot of problems. And that's something that Jarvis was saying, is if we can keep that power play going into the playoffs, it's going to be a different story. So all good stuff. So it's time for the rumor mill, and we'd like to have some fun with this. And I know we've got some things to talk about based on what Katie said for sure. Just wanted to mention that the Canes did make a trade recently. They sent a 5th-round pick in 2027 for a 4th-round pick this year, and took on a contract, Kyle Masters from San Jose. So it was an interesting bit of business by Eric Tulsky, where he actually improves a draft position by taking a contract. That player is on long-term IR, so won't even see the light of day with the Canes organization. So kind of interesting and kind of cool stuff. And we're seeing some movement in the league finally, right? So Rasmus Anderson, the big deal, he heads to Vegas. You got Kiefer Sherwood, a deal done yesterday to go to San Jose. So all of a sudden you've got some movement going on. And maybe we're going to see some movement with the Hurricanes. Any thoughts on that? Katie?
Well, it's interesting with this most recent move to see, is this just getting a little extra draft capital, or is it setting the table for something else, something bigger, where Tulsky wants something a little bit more immediate to have in his back pocket as far as a trade chip of some sort in that draft pick. So who knows? We'll have to see. It will be interesting to see how the Canes move forward, because they definitely are one of the contending teams that has the most cap space, if not the most cap space, of any of the ones with cup aspirations or playoff aspirations. The most interesting thing about Sherwood moving is the fact that the Sharks see themselves as buyers, not sellers this season, which is obviously a change from recent history. So it's I think, going to start shaking a few things loose, especially since the two of the most talked about names have now been moved. And where the Canes fit into all of that is Tulsky going to be aggressive and start jumping and moving forward, we are almost to the 1-year anniversary of the Natchez and Drury for Rantanen trade. So we know that Tulsky is not afraid to pull the trigger early and get business done in January or February if the right trade is there, or see if he decides to sit back and just let everything else kind of develop before he jumps in. And the picture's a little bit clearer. A lot of these, Vegas went in and got Anderson, but what happens if other teams start to fall out of the playoff pictures and then somebody new becomes available? Maybe Vegas isn't able to be a player in that particular trade because they've already made their move. So, well, it'll be very interesting to see how Tulsky approaches this. But the one thing I definitely do not see happening is him just staying pat with the team as it's currently constructed.
Right. I think you're right. It's interesting. You talk about Vegas. They do the home runs each year. And one thing they've done, which Eric Tulsky is not prepared to do, is to sell off their future, basically. I think they've got first-round picks for 3 or 4 years probably gone now. It's insane, right? But they're a win now. That's their whole thing, and they've got a pretty darn good team, and I think Anderson helps them in an area they needed help. Okay, so back to, kind of the situation you brought up, which I think is really the most important area right now for the Canes. And that's that 2C or whatever you want to call it position. That's Logan Stankoven's position. And there are some candidates that folks have been talking about. And I think certainly at the top of the list, there's no question that it's Elias Pettersson with Vancouver. Pettersson is available. There's no question that the Vancouver Canucks have decided they want to kind of turn over a new leaf. They're going to move these guys out. Pettersson will go. I don't think there's any question about that. The question is, is he going to go to the Canes or is he going to go somewhere else? Frank Saravelli of Daily Faceoff thinks a deal will get done before the Olympics. David Pagnotta of the Fourth Period believes he's going to go into the East. So it's going to be an Eastern team that Vancouver does not want him in the Western Conference. So, okay, Pettersson, a guy that, he's having an off year. He's got a monster deal, $11.6 million to 31-32. Aaron, would you take Elias Pettersson?
There's been a lot of interesting speculation about what the Canucks might be willing to do if they did decide to move Pettersson. And would they, one of the big factors that I think would definitely influence the Canes' decision if they decided to pursue Pettersson is, would the Canucks be willing to retain about 25%, Okay. And maybe you'd get an extra draft pick back if they did that, in addition to whatever the package would look like. I think that would certainly make the Canes want to be aggressive in trying to get him. I don't know that they want to take on that whole contract because it is a lot of money for a player who right now, like you said, is not producing that well and who's had some slumps in the recent years as well. The biggest question that a lot of people have is Pettersson has a full no-move clause, and he has to waive in order to move. The reports from his team, his agent, is that he's not going to do that. So I know that's what they're saying now, and that can change if the right fit came along and they were willing to do that. But moving during the season is always very complicated, and it's just, he may simply want to play out the season. So if that's the case, then nobody's gonna pick him up. And then the other question is, if he waives, would he waive for Carolina? Are the Canes a team he'd be willing and interested to play for? So if he wants to play for a contender, I don't see why not. But I know that there are players in the league who have said on those anonymous player surveys that they would not play for Rod Brind'Amour. So you never know who those players are. We found out that Mikko Rantanen was one of them after the fact, and I know they don't want to be in that situation again.
Well, one of the biggest differences, I think, with Pettersson is his defensive acumen.
Oh, absolutely.
He likes the defensive game. He's very much a player that I think would adapt nicely to the Canes style. So, I think the bigger question is, if you're going to get a guy like Pettersson, what do you have to give up? And I know there have been lots of different ideas on what that trade could look like. I believe it's a trade that would probably include Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Vancouver has had interest in him. And I think it's going to be a top prospect. It's probably going to be a Bradley Nadeau, a Charlie Serrato, Justin Robidoux. You can pick whoever you want. But it's going to be one of those guys for sure. They're going to want someone that can come in and start to play and make a difference. Plus, they're going to want a first-round pick and some other stuff. So I think the Canes
how about local boy Logan Stankoven?
Well, okay. That's an interesting one, but, he's just signed a long-term deal. Do you want that kind of message to the hockey club that, hey, you signed an 8-year deal and you're gone? I mean, that's a question, right?
I don't know. I mean, long-term for long-term. I mean, you're taking term for term.
Well, okay, and I don't think you're necessarily wrong. I mean, one thing that Eric Tulsky has said right from day one is he will make moves that improve the hockey club. And he's done that. He's traded players. Look, last year he did it without even batting an eye. He sent Jack Drury, who we never thought was going to move in a trade like that, and he was gone. So he has no concern. He'll make a move if he thinks it's right, and if it's Logan Stankoven, it's Logan Stankoven. But I think the Canes have the assets. Yeah.
One thing to keep in mind is that Kotkaniemi also has a 10-team no movement clause or no trade clause. And so if he doesn't want to go to Vancouver, and Vancouver very likely could be one of those teams on his list, then they have to have another player to go back. Stankoven doesn't have the trade protection, and he's a local boy. So if you don't want to hurt Stankoven's feelings, send him back to play in front of all of his hometown family and friends, and maybe that helps to kind of heal hurt feelings or something along those lines. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, from a certain point of view, it makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense because it helps with the cap side, of course, and it's also a position-to-position replacement. So yes, I don't think it's out of the question, and I've thought about Stankoven previously in a deal like this. Now, if it's not a guy like Elias Pettersson, you've got some other folks that are out there. You've got Vincent Trocheck. Vinny, of course, was here, played quite well with the Canes. He's on a $5.6 million deal till 28-29. He's 5'11", 190 pounds. He's not huge, but he's not tiny. And he's a guy that is outstanding in the faceoff dot and a right shot. So there is something that really, really appeals to the Hurricanes. They're looking for some help with a right faceoff guy, and I think he could bring that. So he's a guy that could be available. It's going to cost you for sure. But, they've done deals with the Rangers before. So you can't say never, never, because they did the Andrei Miller deal. So that could be happening. The other one that we thought about is an interesting one is Charlie Coyle. Now, Charlie Coyle, a bit of a different player. Now, Katie, you've seen Coyle with the Colorado Avalanche. What do you think about Charlie Coyle as a possible guy?
Oh, he definitely brings the size and the presence, the physical presence. He's not a bruiser by any stretch of the imagination, but he really does kind of take up space more than just physically. He's good, but I guess recency bias for me is the fact that when it came to the playoffs, he pretty much disappeared for the Avs, and he was one of the. I mean, he was probably reason number 4 that they weren't able to get out of Game 7 and that series against Dallas. There were a bunch of others, but it was one thing compounded on the other with him just not producing, and so it makes me a little hesitant, especially as far as the so-called 2C spot is concerned, because when the play gets tough and the ice seems to shrink and it gets just more intense and the expectations are higher, my one experience with him is that he shrinks from the moment and he didn't embrace it at all. So it would be fine, but that's as much as I'm going to give it. It would be fine.
Well, and he's a UFA, so I think, again, it would be a short-term fix. But, I think the Canes are probably going to look for something that somebody that has a little bit longer contracts, more runway, because, I think that's what they need. And hopefully Eric's working the phones on that. Now, one of the discussions we've had previously is that, of course, if the Canes can't solve center ice and have to go with the crew they have, one of the options is, do they add a winger? Do they bring someone in that can make a difference on the wing? And they've got a lot of small players. Do they have someone that could possibly come in and bring a little bit of size and some offense? And I've talked about Jordan Kyrou a number of times. I think he's a guy that the Canes might be interested in. Another guy having an off season, not playing particularly well, but here's someone that's had over 30 goals the last 3 seasons prior to this. And definitely has improved his defensive game demonstrably. He was actually given some votes in the the Frank Selke Award last year. So that's for best defensive forward. So that tells me a lot about Kyrou. He's on a good deal. He's $8 million and a bit till 30-31. So these are players that we can think about. I believe that Eric's going to try to hit a home run. I think he's going to try to get someone that we sit there and go, that's a real nice ad, not just, fillers that they can, fourth liners or whatever. I think he's going to try to bring a player in that can make a demonstrable addition to the hockey club. And he's got everything he needs. Draft picks, he's got cap room, he's got prospects up the wazoo. I don't think he could be in a better position. So lots of excitement there. The D-core is pretty well set with of course, Nystrom available and, of course, Juuso Välimäki. He's been playing great down in Chicago, so he's ready to be available if they need a left shot guy. He's got NHL experience and has played well in the past in the NHL. So I think they're in pretty good shape there. And then they'll be looking for a goaltender. Aaron, thoughts?
Well, I think they're going to be looking for the kind of guy that's, a guy in net, just a depth goaltender that is reliable, but not necessarily going to be expected to do more than come in if there are injuries. Because the great thing about how things started this year is you had both Kochetkov and Anderson, and then you brought in Bussi to be sort of that third guy. And we were all feeling like that was a great insurance policy. But then, of course, with Pyotr Kochetkov needing surgery and being out for the rest of the season, they have Freddie and Bussi, and that's great. We've talked about them a lot at the beginning of this. We know why we love them. But they're one injury away from having to call up someone from Chicago. And right now, the goalies in Chicago don't inspire that kind of confidence to be somebody that you would call up in the middle of a tough playoff series. So I think they're going to look for somebody. I don't know who that's going to be because, it might be someone who's in the AHL right now, but just a little bit better caliber of goaltender. So they'll find someone that they can acquire when that, by the deadline if they want to get an insurance policy. But I don't see them spending a lot of assets or capital on it.
I totally agree. And sure, there'll be some, as teams fall out, of course, there'll be some goaltenders that'll be available. And they had a gentleman that they might have signed, which is interesting, James Reimer, who ended up coming back and signing on with the Senators. Okay, so let's have some closing thoughts. The Canes have 7 more games before the Olympic break. What are we thinking? How do we think they're going to fare? Katie?
Well, honestly, looking at who they are going to be playing, there is no reason that the Canes shouldn't be able to win all 7. I'm being realistic. I think they should. Now, things happen. There's one back-to-back in there. You can have an off night, that sort of thing. So I would be satisfied with 6-1, maybe even settle for 5-2. But anything less than 5-2 against these teams when they're going against Chicago, Ottawa twice, the Rangers. I mean, even the best team they're playing, which is the Capitals, they're struggling as a team right now and just trying to claw their way into a playoff spot, let alone a strong position in the Metro. So, this isn't the recent stretch that they've been on against the Colorados and the Dallases and those types of teams they've played really well against. If they bring that game against these other teams coming to town, they should be able to win. It might not be easy, but they should win. So I think they should go 7-0 in these games, but 6-1, 5-2, given the things that come up in games from here and there, that would be fine. Anything less than 5-2, though, not acceptable.
Aaron?
Well, I'm going to lean on the side of 6-1 just because there's always a trap game. There's always one team. It'll be the team that they absolutely, positively, 100% should beat, and they will come out looking like they have forgot how to play hockey and that their skates are on the
Blues game. Like the Blues
yes. game. So I think there'll be one of those, but I would love to see a 7-game winning streak. We all would. That's one of the things they haven't had this year is a really long winning streak. And that I think would restore some of our confidence because we have seen that in past seasons where they've gone on one of these, 6, 7, 8 games in a row, kind of a winning streak. And we haven't seen that this season. So this is a good time to do it with these particular teams lined up.
Well, and we're going to be watching to see if the top line can continue its terror. Of course, the power play, will it continue to be firing on all cylinders? And will the goaltending continue to be lights out? as we've been seeing in recent games. Yeah, lots of things to follow here for sure. The Canes will be playing hard. These teams that they're playing, yes, many cases they're out of the playoffs or close to it. Some of them are fighting for their lives, and they're going to come in and they're going to want to knock off the top team in the East right now. So it's going to be fun, and we're going to be watching it, of course, very, very closely and getting ready for the Olympic break. So we'll be back, I think, just about the end of this run. I think there might be a game or two following our next podcast together. So we'll have lots to talk about, I'm sure, as things start to unwind, and maybe there'll be a deal done, or who knows what there'll be, but we'll certainly be on top of it. In any case, ladies, it's always great fun, and it was again as we got into some spirited discussion today, and we'll look forward to getting back together in a couple of weeks and continuing these fun chats. For those of you who've been watching or listening, of course, we're delighted you've spent time with us. If you have comments or thoughts or questions, please leave those in the comments section below. Of course, if you like this episode, please press the like button. We're always happy when you do that. And if you want to be alerted of future episodes of Storm Tracker, please press the subscribe and the bell buttons, and you'll be made aware just as soon as it's available. Again, we thank you so much for spending time with us and look forward to getting together with you real soon, right here on Storm Tracker.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends for everything with the Canes you need. Storm Tracker.